It's 1950, and you're standing outside a bank in Nagoya, Japan, holding a folder of numbers that refuse to add up. Your company is out of cash. Workers haven't been paid in full for weeks. The union is preparing to strike, and the banks that once lent you money are now refusing to lend you another yen unless something drastic changes. You are Kichiro Toyota, and the car company your father's textile fortune helped you build is on the edge of collapse. To save it, you do something almost no executive today would choose to do. You resign, publicly, taking personal responsibility for the crisis, stepping down as president of the very company that carries your family's name, so that the business itself might survive, even if your position in it does not. Thousands of workers still lose their jobs in the restructuring that follows. It is by every measure a humiliating collapse. But something else happens in the wreckage of that crisis. Deep inside the company, an engineer named Taiichi Ono becomes obsessed with a single question: how did we let this happen? His answer becomes the foundation of everything Toyota builds for the next 70 years. The company had been manufacturing the way most factories manufactured everywhere in the world, building in large batches, storing extra inventory just in case, tolerating waste because waste was simply the cost of doing business. Ono decides waste is not a cost of doing business. Waste is the disease that nearly killed the company. He builds a new system from the ground up, one piece at a time, mostly by walking the factory floor himself and watching where time and material disappeared. He spends hours simply standing in one spot on the production floor, watching workers move, watching parts pile up in some places and sit empty in others, refusing to accept the standard explanation that this was simply how factories worked. He borrows an idea from an unlikely place, the way American supermarkets restocked shelves only as items were purchased, rather than warehousing enormous surplus in the back room, and adapts that same pull-based logic to an entire automobile factory. The first principle is brutally simple: build only what is needed, only when it is needed, and only the amount needed. No warehouses full of parts sitting idle, no cars built ahead of actual demand. Every part arrives at the exact station that needs it, at almost the exact moment it is needed, using a card-based signal system called Kanban to pull material through the factory, instead of pushing it. The second principle is even more radical for its time. Any single worker on the line, no matter how junior, has the authority to stop the entire production line the instant they spot a defect. Not report it up a chain of command, stop the line immediately. In most factories at the time, that would get you fired for costing the company money. At Toyota, it becomes company policy because a small defect caught immediately costs almost nothing to fix, while the same defect discovered downstream, or worse, in a customer's driveway, costs everything, including the trust that built the company in the first place. These two ideas, building only what is needed and stopping instantly at the first sign of a problem, sound almost too simple to matter, but together they compound into something enormous: less wasted material, fewer defective cars, lower costs per vehicle without cutting corners on quality, because the entire system is designed to make quality cheaper than sloppiness, not more expensive. For years, this system operates almost entirely inside Japan, refined quietly, without much attention from the rest of the world. Then, in 1973, an event thousands of kilometers away changes everything. An oil crisis sends fuel prices skyrocketing across the globe. American automakers are still building large, heavy, fuel-hungry cars because that is what had been profitable for decades. Suddenly, those cars are extraordinarily expensive to drive. Toyota's cars, small, efficient, and cheap to run, are sitting in showrooms at exactly the moment the entire world's priorities flip upside down.
You didn't build small, efficient cars because you predicted an oil crisis. You built them because your production philosophy naturally favored simplicity, efficiency, and low waste in every part of the vehicle, not just the factory that made it. When the crisis hits, the world doesn't just want a Toyota, the world suddenly needs exactly what Toyota happened to already be building. Exports to the United States surge. A car company that most Americans barely knew a decade ago becomes a fixture on driveways across the country. By the late 1990s, Toyota is one of the most respected automakers on Earth, known for reliability so consistent it becomes almost a punchline, the car that simply refuses to break down. And once again, instead of coasting on that reputation, the company makes a strange, expensive bet almost nobody else believes is worth the investment. In 1997, Toyota releases the Prius, the first mass-produced hybrid gasoline-electric car in the world. Competitors question why anyone would spend years and enormous engineering resources on a complicated hybrid system when gasoline is cheap and customers aren't asking for it. Toyota builds it anyway, treating it the exact way it treats a defect on the line, a problem worth solving now, long before the rest of the industry is forced to solve it later. For years, the Prius sells modestly. Then gas prices rise again, environmental regulations tighten around the world, and suddenly every automaker on the planet needs hybrid and electric technology Toyota has already been refining for over a decade. The pattern repeats. Build the capability quietly before the market demands it, and be standing there ready when the world finally catches up. But the story is not one of interrupted triumph. In 2009 and 2010, Toyota's reputation for near-perfect quality is publicly and painfully tested. Reports surface of vehicles experiencing sudden, unintended acceleration, incidents linked to pedal and floor mat issues across millions of cars. Toyota recalls more than 8 million vehicles worldwide, faces congressional hearings in the United States, and watches the one thing it had spent 60 years building, absolute trust in its quality, come under direct public attack. For a company whose entire identity was built on a worker's ability to stop the line at the first sign of a problem, the crisis cuts to the core of what the brand claims to stand for. The recovery is not instant, but it happens because the underlying system was never actually broken. Toyota tightens quality processes further, strengthens its response protocols, and leans back into the exact discipline that built the company in the first place, treating the crisis itself as a defect to be traced back to its root cause and eliminated, rather than a PR problem to be managed with words alone. Here is what ties it all together. From a near-bankrupt company in 1950 to a hybrid bet in 1997 to a recall crisis in 2010. Toyota's dominance was never really about any single car, any single decade, or any single lucky bet on an oil crisis nobody could have predicted. It was about a production philosophy so disciplined that it could survive its own founder's resignation, absorb sudden shifts in global demand, fund unprofitable research for over a decade, and recover from a public trust crisis, all without ever abandoning the two simple rules an engineer wrote on a factory floor after the company nearly collapsed. Build only what is needed. Stop the instant something is wrong. Somewhere in a Toyota factory right now, on an assembly line most customers will never see, a single worker still has the authority to stop an entire production line over one small imperfection most people would never even notice. That authority exists today because of a crisis that happened over 70 years ago, and it is still the exact reason so many people trust the car in their driveway without ever thinking about why.